Welcome into Prep Picks. I've got my tag team partners beside me, Casey Getz and Steve Wilmoth of ESPN Tri-Cities, TriCitiesSports.com. One of us had a really good week, one of us had an okay week, and one of us didn't have a very good week. I'll let you look at the standings here and decide who is who. Chance to make up some games, though, this week as we've got region play coming into play in Tennessee and some big games. Casey, we're going to start with two undefeated teams in Class 4A, Greenville at Cherokee.
Cherokee's one of the reasons why I did not have such a good week last week. So, but congratulations to Coach Hensley and the Chiefs, 2-0, two big wins. Now it really starts for Cherokee. Get into region play. I believe they have Elizabethton next week. So back-to-back, they got the top two teams, Region 1 4A. It's been a great start. You can make the case they're probably going to be the 3 seed in this region. I don't see them beating Elizabethton. I don't see them beating Greenville. After seeing the Green Devils in person last week, they've lived up to the hype I heard preseason. Greenville big on the road.
We said last week that if Cherokee won that game last week, it would be their biggest win in 5 years. This would be the biggest win in school history, okay, if they were to take down Greenville this week. But look at what Coach Hensley has done. That offense for Cherokee, quarterback Landon Jeffers, Hayden Hook, a bunch of playmakers. They've won 6 of their last 7, scored at least 30 points in all 6 of those games, and 26 in the one loss to Sullivan East. So offensively, they are getting it done. But offensively, when you're talking offense, you got to talk the Green Devils. Green Devils almost 400 yards rushing against Dobyns-Bennett last week, 500 yards on the nose total offense. I've watched the film a couple of times. Next time I watch it, I'm going to count yards after contact for quarterback Caden Baugh and Carson Quill, and it had to be half of those. It's amazing. Cherokee's not ready for this one yet. Greenville rolls.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've been high on Cherokee all year, although I did not pick them as well, and I regretted it almost immediately. But Greenville is the class, really a 4A. They're the ones to beat, so I'll make it a clean sweep. All right, another big one, West Ridge at Dobyns-Bennett in Class 6A. I can't believe we're already talking about games that are really going to mean something for the playoffs, but this is going to be a big one.
It is a big one. Sullivan County, all of Sullivan County is talking about this one. 1993 is the last time a Sullivan County team took down the mighty Dobyns-Bennett Indians. It's 33 straight now, I think, the Indians. Now, most of those, granted, weren't against maybe even schools in their own classification or maybe in that crazy regular season / playoff classification deal that TLSAA had at times. West Ridge, a 6A school, still not close to the enrollment of Dobyns-Bennett. But the folks at West Ridge believe this is the biggest chance, the best chance for a team from the county to go and beat Dobyns-Bennett in some time. Quarterback Trey Frazier told me in no uncertain terms we can't repeat here on Prep Picks, about what this game means to him on Friday night. Coming off that injury, he's got 5 total touchdowns. Meanwhile, Dobyns-Bennett, offensively, they got to find some explosive plays. I know they're down their 4th running back last week, but there's nothing in the passing game, only 22 yards against the Green Devils. Tylen Taylor had 10 catches, 168 yards, 3 touchdowns against West Ridge last year. They've got to find a way to get him the ball into space and create some explosive plays, or West Ridge can roll into Jay Fred and get their first win over Dobyns-Bennett. I'm still going to stick with the Indians, but man, is this one going to be fun Friday night.
West Ridge has done what they're supposed to do. They've beaten 2 teams that are combined 0-4 impressively. Daniel Boone volunteer. Now this is going to be their biggest test of the season. DB, they've been battle tested. Fair get a close win, and they did get rolled by Greenville last week. And you mentioned West Ridge has yet to beat DB or Science Hill in football. And for the last couple of years, Coach Hilton says this is as good a time as any. They haven't got it done yet. Until I see it, I'm going to pick the Indians. I think they bounce back. Who they've played so far, I think, helps them out this week. I like Dobyns-Bennett at home.
So you guys know I'm a huge NASCAR fan, right? This has been the season where long streaks have come to an end. You saw Chase Briscoe. You saw Daniel Suarez. You saw lots of guys end long streaks. And I think West Ridge will end theirs as well. I'm going to break up this party here, and I'm going to go with the Wolves. All right, the Musket Bowl. I mean, I know that both these teams have struggled to start the season. Boone definitely more than Crockett, but this is just one of the great rivalries in the area. Casey, who do you have in this one?
In this one, I'm going to take the home team, David Crockett. And yes, it has been a great series. Last year, you touched on how you were talking about games that matter come playoff time. The winner of this game last year got a playoff spot. The loser did not make it. That's how important this game was to the playoffs. I mean, Crockett missed the playoffs last year because they lost to Boone and Tennessee High, along with Morristown, West, and Sevier County. So, but I like the Pioneers. Yes, they probably are kicking themselves that they let one get away. They had a lead early at Cherokee. It was kind of a reversal what they did in week 1, where they fell behind, and then came back for a win against South Green. They had a lead, did not hold on, so I'm sure they're kind of kicking themselves for that. But Daniel Boone really struggling, just 7 points in 2 games. I think the Pioneers are a little too much in this one, and they break a 3-year losing streak in the Musket Bowl.
Yeah, both these teams do come limping into this game, but as Heather said, it's still a Musket Bowl. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It does not matter. Casey mentioned it, Boone with only 7 points, but Crockett offensively hasn't really lit it up against either South Green or Cherokee, scoring a total of 41 points. I just look at that Crockett offense with A.J. Wynn, the quarterback, LaMarcus Dunn out there on the edge. They just seem to me to have the ability to make a little bit more plays on the offensive side of the football than what Boone has shown so far this year. And so with that, I've got to go with Coach Hayden Shanley and the Pioneers.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Crockett just has way too much offense for Boone, and I'll make it a clean sweep for David Crockett. All right, let's switch our attention now to Southwest Virginia and a couple of teams that started the season opposite directions. This is actually going to be, I don't know, kind of an interesting game because it's a interstate matchup, if you will. Unaka at Twin Springs. Steve, we'll start with you.
Well, the good news for Unaka is the offense returned in its season opener after struggling down the stretch last year due to injuries. Bad news is the defense gave up 71 points. It continues to surrender a lot of points. 229 points over its last 4 games total. Twin Springs won this game 42-0 last year. Twin Springs had to reload. They've done that, turned to the defense in their season opener to get it done. I think this is going to be closer than last year, but I still like Twin Springs. I'll take the Titans.
Yeah, the Titans shutting out Northwood, scored 27 points. Unaka had a bye week, I believe, last week, so they've had 2 weeks to kind of get ready for this one. But because it's in Nicholsville, I'm going to take Coach Warner and Twin Springs to get this win.
So I actually saw Unaka in week 1, that game where they gave up 70 points. And when I got there, I thought, oh, well, this is going to be a blowaway. And then I looked at the score, and Unaka just kept scoring and scoring and scoring. I'm impressed with Unaka's offense for sure, but you mentioned that improves defense at Twin Springs, so I'll make it a clean sweep and take the Titans. All right, Friday night rivals. John Battle at Virginia High. Throw the records away, throw everything away. This is kind of like the Musket Bowl. This is a great battle. Casey, you're going to be on the call for that game. Who do you like in this one?
Well, if you're a John Battle fan, the last time they beat Virginia High was September the 6th, 2019. We did that game on Friday Night Rivals, so 5 years to the day. Can they break the streak and get the win? I don't think so. I'm going to pick Virginia High, the Bearcats. I did not pick them last week. They did beat Patrick Henry in overtime. Talking to Coach Patterson this week, he says this year's team better than what they had last year. Deion Graham started midway through the season last year as a freshman quarterback. He's back. Total command of this offense with Elijah Burks back there. They got some speed on the outside. Bearcats, I think it's going to be relatively close, maybe a couple scores, but I like Virginia High.
You know, John Battle coming in having lost 15 seniors from last year. It's really a tough early season schedule. They faced a very motivated Abingdon team last week. Now they get Virginia High coming off that big win. Keyshawn Anderson had a big game last week, 3 receiving touchdowns for the Bearcats, nearly 100 yards receiving and rushing in that big win over Patrick Henry. Battle just doesn't have enough yet. It's going to be tough sledding until they can get some experience. I like Virginia High in this one as well.
Last year, John Battle came into this game hot off their win over Abingdon and did not get it done. That looked like their best chance to beat Virginia High. I don't think this year's Battle team is as good as last year's was, and so we'll go with the Bearcats as well. All right, Patrick Henry at Lebanon. 2 teams that maybe weren't so much on our radar before the season started, but especially Lebanon turned a lot of heads in their week 1 win over Honaker. Steve, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, what a difference a week makes. If you put this up there last week, I think everybody's going Patrick Henry. Based on last week, and you mentioned the way Lebanon performed against Honaker, a 64-point turnaround from last year. Very motivated were the Pioneers. Of course, they've got experience. Mike Reese at quarterback. Freshman running back came on the scenes with 120 yards. If you look at Patrick Henry last week, where was the rushing offense that we expected from the Rebels with that veteran offensive line? Only 170 yards rushing against Virginia High, only 196 total yards, 8 first downs. Lebanon hasn't been 2-0 since 2009. I'll take the Pioneers.
I'm going to take the Rebels of Patrick Henry to bounce back. You know, they did lose to a bigger school in overtime in Virginia High, and Lebanon beat Honaker really decisively. I think if we would pick that game, none of us would have picked Lebanon to beat Honaker, but they did convincingly. That was on the Thursday in week 1 to open that one. But I think Patrick Henry, I'm going to say they avoid the 0-2 start in the Rebels, maybe get back to that ground game. Coach Pageant this week, a little more success. Lebanon riding high after beating Honaker. Can they deliver again? I'll take the Rebels on the road.
It's very interesting because how much of that win was rivalry, hyped up for Honaker, first game of the year, and how real is Lebanon? We'll find out because Patrick Henry is a really good team. I'm going to go with Casey, and I'm going to pick Patrick Henry in this one. Now we'll switch our attention to our podcast exclusive picks and a game that is really important in Class 4A as far as two teams that are struggling to start the year, and that's Sullivan East and Volunteer. I think it is Casey's turn to go.
All right, I'll go first. These two teams, the good news is someone's going to be 1-0 in region play after this game. Both teams 0-2 on the season. Last year we did this game on Friday Night Rivals. Sullivan East won convincingly. They were a much different team than they were last year. Volunteer lost a shootout at Lakeway Christian last week. They put up 38 points. Because of that, I'm going to take Volunteer. Sullivan East, I believe, has only scored 10 points all season. I like Volunteer to get the win, break a long losing streak, and they get a win.
It's pretty good, Casey, on the fly on the extra podcast picks. You're right. Volunteer, Sullivan East only 10 points. In fact, Sullivan East in 2 games, -9 yards rushing. Now, their forte is throwing the football, but they've yet to get to 200-yard plateau in either one of their first 2 games. Meanwhile, Volunteer, in that close loss at Lakeway last week, found a way to run the football. Keelan Relaford, 4 touchdowns. You look at Class 4A, there's Greeneville, there's Elizabethton, and now there's Cherokee and even Granger turning some heads. If either one of these teams want to sneak into that number 4 spot, this is a must-win on Friday night. I just like Volunteer. I believe Relaford is a difference maker athletically. I don't know that East has an answer for him, and I think Volunteer picks up the win.
The thing about this East team is that they are extremely young. They start a lot of sophomores, and I think in a couple of years they're going to be a pretty good football team, but just based on the experience alone that Volunteer has, I like Volunteer as well. Switching back over to Virginia now, and a couple of teams we don't talk about a ton, especially Hurley, but why not give them their flowers? Hurley goes to Eastside.
Eastside, fell behind 15-0 last week. Really showed some moxie coming behind to beat Wise Central. Meanwhile, Hurley was marched upon by Sherman, West Virginia last week.
Oh, I see what you did there.
There you go.
I see what you did there.
Anytime I can get Sherman, West Virginia there, it's a good thing. Hurley last year had 22 players on its roster. 13 were seniors. I'm not even sure how they formulated a roster coming into this year. With that, that's got to mean an inexperienced football team. I'll take Eastside.
I will take the Spartans as well. Everything, I will cede my time back to Steve. What he said here, I'll just say Eastside wins. I'll be lying if I said I knew a lot about Hurley. Eastside beat a Class 2 school last week. I'll take the Spartans.
Yeah, I like the Spartans as well. I think that Hurley, they've gone through some changes. They have a brand new coach, took over in middle of last season, and I think he's really starting to get the excitement back, just in time for them to consolidate, of course, but in Hurley football, but they're not quite there yet, so I'll take the Spartans as well. Speaking of teams that will not be around in a couple of years in consolidation, Ridgeview makes one of their final trips out to Grundy. Casey, we'll start with you.
Grundy played a bigger school in their opener. I think it was Carroll County, and they scored, I think, in the mid-20s, but they gave up in the 40s against Carroll County. Ridgeview had no trouble beating up on J.I. Burton in week 1. This may very well, like Heather said, will likely be the last trip Ridgeview makes to Grundy. Of course, Grundy will have one more season after this, but it'll be a new contract. So maybe not, who knows? We'll find out next year when the schedule comes out, but I'm gonna take Ridgeview too much, and they're gonna have their March set. There's a couple games in the Mountain 7 I'm sure they already have circled or squared on their schedule. I think Ridgeview wins easily at Grundy.
Yeah, this is my 9th season on Prep Picks. I think I've been talking about Rhino Quinn at Ridgeview for all 9 seasons, if memory serves.
He's got those COVID years.
He got multiple COVID years, yes. He threw 3 touchdown passes in the first quarter last week for Ridgeview. 9 different Ridgeview receivers caught passes. Not only is O'Quinn back, 13 seniors overall, 17 starters back for Ridgeview as well. Meanwhile, Grundy returns a veteran offensive line. Every starter has starting experience. They'll want to play keep away from Ridgeview if possible. But I think with O'Quinn and those talented receivers, they don't need the football very long. And I like the Wolfpack to win this one.
Yeah, I like Grundy overall this year. As you mentioned, a ton of experience on the line, but Ridgeview's just got too much firepower. Probably the best team Grundy will see all year. I'll take Ridgeview as well. Final pick, the battle for bragging rights in Lee County. Thomas Walker at Lehigh. Steve.
You know, Union has kind of been the arch nemesis of Lee as of late, and really ever since the two schools were formed and started playing. And Lee took it on the chin to a very motivated Union team last week. Meanwhile, Lee has been the arch nemesis of Thomas Walker. The Pioneers have never beaten Lehigh. It's 0-9 for the Pioneers. They had a great start last week. Quarterback Cheek came in and did a nice job for the Pioneers in the win over Cumberland Gap. But unfortunately, I think this is a perfect 10 in a row now for Lee.
I think Thomas Walker is going to have a chance to make the playoffs in Region 1D this year, but this game, Lehigh, as much as they took it on the chin last week, they're going to want to deliver some punishment this week. I think this is the wrong week to be playing the Generals. I think Lehigh, obviously, they didn't score last week. I think they're going to put up some points this week and win comfortably.
I think this is the closest that Thomas Walker will have been to Lehigh. This is a really good Thomas Walker team, as Casey mentioned. They have a chance to make the playoffs. I'm really high on them. I think they're going to have a good season. But you talk about the size of the schools and the depth and the things that start to come into play late in the game. I'm going to go with Lehigh, but I think it's going to be closer than a lot of people think it's going to be. All right, thanks for joining us on this edition of the Prep Picks podcast. There are too many P's in that word. Prep Picks podcast. Don't forget, for all your scores and highlights, join us Friday night on Friday Night Huddle.